Okay, let's get back to the positive side of things in Indiana. Something more hopeful, something more inspiring, something truly just more positive is the fact that the Pacers very well could be poised for another deep playoff run. The Colts lost, but just a few hours later, the Pacers put together a very strong performance and took down the Celtics after losing to the Celtics big a couple days prior and losing to Thunder just a day before that. So here's what's happened recently. All right, I want to go over those three results a little bit more closely. The Pacers beat the Celtics last night, 123-114, avenging a loss from earlier in the weekend. They lost big by about 40 points there in Boston, the day after losing by 6 at home to the Thunder. That avoids a 3-game losing streak. So that second game over Boston, that one being a victory, that avoids the 3-game losing streak. That would include a loss to OKC. The Pacers are not sliding. Now, it would have been very acceptable if the Colts had lost all three, if the Pacers had lost all 3 of those games. I absolutely believe that because it's 2 teams that very well could be in the finals, right? It's the Thunder and it's the Celtics twice after having a tough stretch of games before that as well, where they picked up a few major big-time wins. We're talking about the Warriors win in particular. The Pacers in this moment, right? They lose to the Thunder, they lose to the Celtics, but then they get revenge on the Celtics, and they're now the only team that has beaten the Celtics multiple times thus far this season. They hung with the Thunder. That was a very good loss. Bounced back against Boston in a fashion reminiscent of a playoff series. And this is what I want to mention most. This is what I want to emphasize the most, is the fact that the way the Pacers won, the way they bounced back, reminded me of what good playoff teams do in the playoffs, because common sense would say, right? If you play the Celtics twice in the span of 3 days, feels like a playoff series, right? Both games on the road, first time get blown away, but the second time, and yes, I recognize that they got Andrew Nembhard back, and I'm going to talk about that in a second, the Pacers pull it together and put together a 9-point win on the road, which would theoretically, looking into, if we view this in a playoff sense, save themselves in the series, perhaps extend the series to take it back home to Indiana, something along those lines. That's how they beat the Bucks. That's how they beat the Knicks. You can lose a game, but the next day you have to be prepared to pull it together and get back and on the road against the best team in the league, pick up a major win. And that's exactly what the Pacers did. This stretch felt like a playoff stretch because you played the Thunder and the Celtics twice in a span of 4 days. Back-to-back in there, played the Thunder at home, then went straight out to Boston to play the Celtics the next day. 2 losses, and then pulled together a win on that last day, again, against the best team in the league by all accounts. It was very impressive, and it was impressive in the same way that we were impressed by the Pacers last season. That is what is encouraging, because sure, the Pacers can be good, the Pacers could be average, whatever they are. They're reminiscent of the Pacers from last season, and that's what we wanted to see, was that carryover. Last year couldn't have been a fluke. We needed to see the Pacers have their success from last season and then exemplify those same successes this year and build upon them to take themselves to the next level. They beat out teams like the Bucks and the Knicks in the postseason last year, and they're starting to feel like they're capable of doing the same thing. Be a plucky 6 seed that makes the way to the Eastern Conference Finals and potentially moves on even further than that. Last year, the Pacers got hot at the end of the year, and they carried that into the playoffs. Obviously, we're not at the end of the year yet. We're not late in the year yet. It feels like we're just getting started. But with momentum, this team has the roster talent and the cohesion to do the same thing again. They're finally realizing the potential we knew they had, because we saw it come to fruition last season. This team truly can beat anyone in the league. They can beat anyone in the NBA, and they just showed that by on the road, after getting blown away in their 3rd game in 4 days, going out and beating the Celtics on the road. And I know it's one game, and I know it's one result, but the Celtics played well, and the Pacers just played better. And they're not going to have to play the Celtics every single day, every single round in the playoffs, right? There's going to be opportunities for the Pacers to work their way up to some of those top-tier teams. And just a few weeks ago, I had a segment, I made a video about how the Pacers are embarrassingly bad. But now it's starting to feel like the Pacers are capable, again, of making a deep playoff run, getting hot, beating anyone they could possibly face. I want to talk about Andrew Nembhard, because 17 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists was his statistics count in the second game against Boston, the victory. He was injured with tendonitis in the loss a couple days prior. So Andrew Nembhard wasn't available for Boston the first time. The second time has 17 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. Andrew Nembhard, to me, is maybe the most valuable piece, the most valuable supporting cast member of this team. He's a valuable scorer. He hustles down low and he moves the ball very well. We know about those 8 assists. He has a very high basketball IQ. It feels like watching Andrew Nembhard, you are assured that he's going to make the right decision with the basketball. Whether that means he needs to pass, whether that means he needs to pull up and take a mid-range jumper. We saw one of those in the first quarter against Boston to extend the Pacers' lead. It feels like Andrew Nembhard knows what he needs to do with the basketball and executes that perfectly every single time, and that is very relieving because that takes a lot of pressure off the rest of the backcourt, right? The rest of the backcourt all of a sudden isn't asked to shoulder the load that Andrew Nembhard can't because he's out of the game with an injury. When Andrew Nembhard is in, it feels like the Pacers play more relaxed, and it feels like they're a little bit more loose because they have another experienced player, another experienced piece to play through. Aaron Nesmith is similar, right? And he's been out as well. They went down at the same time, and I think that significantly impacted the Pacers' losing streak earlier on in the season because those three-point shooters that play great defense, that's what Nembhard and Nesmith, that's what their profile really is. And the Pacers were missing that. They were missing perimeter shooting and they were missing perimeter defense, and Nembhard supplies that while also, again, moving the ball around well. He hustles down low. He grabs those plucky rebounds, those crucial rebounds. He hits those crucial shots. He creates crucial shots for other players. And we know Tyrese Halliburton can bank some of those in. It's exactly what he did in the game the other night. Andrew Nembhard's one of the most important members of this team, and he's back. And that's what I wanted. That really leads us into the next point of Indiana's mostly at full strength now, right? They've been injured periodically. Benedict Mathurin missed some time, right? We saw, of course, Nembhard was out for a while. Nesmith has been out as well. Obi Toppin is still out with an injury. When he returns, this will be full-strength Indiana Pacers. Last year in the playoffs, Indiana was not at full strength. Benedict Mathurin was out with an injury. The full-strength Pacers are capable of almost anything, in my opinion, and we see that again last night without Obi Toppin, still winning the game down low in the paint. They outscored the Celtics in the paint despite not having Obi Toppin down there. The Pacers are doing great things, right? The Pacers are clearly capable of picking off in a one-game scenario. They're clearly capable of beating anyone in the NBA at full strength with Andrew Nembhard in the lineup, with Nesmith in the lineup. Hopefully with Obi Toppin back in the lineup soon as well. Tyrese Halliburton had 31, and I think Nembhard is really the piece that frees up the rest of the team and the rest of the backcourt in particular, where they can relax, they can breathe for a little bit. They know Nembhard's going to put together at least 10 points a game. And we know he's going to have rebounds. We know he's going to have assists. And when the Pacers need it, when they're down by 2 or 3 possessions or up 2 or 3 possessions, Nembhard keeps them afloat and keeps them ahead of some of those high contending teams that they're playing against with those big-time defensive rebounds, with those big-time mid-range shots, with those hard physical drives to lay up, or even just with an assist to open up some space in the corner for someone like Jarris Walker or Tyrese Halliburton or Pascal Siakam, anyone to knock down a three to keep the Pacers just ahead or catch them up to a team just ahead of them on the scoreboard in the fourth quarter. Nembhard is going to be crucial in the fourth quarter of big-time games, and if he stays healthy and if the Pacers stay healthy, I honestly believe that they're capable of anything. If there was ever a time that the Pacers have appeared to be capable of achieving greatness similar to what they achieved last season, it's now, and I truly cannot wait to see where the Pacers go from here off the backs of Andrew Nembhard, Tyrese Halliburton, and the rest of this core group of players that is now playing together healthy. Have had an incredible last 10 games, have won quite a few of them against some opponents higher than them in the standings, including the Boston Celtics, who are sitting near the very top. I think the Pacers are capable of anything, and if they are capable of another deep playoff run, it's partially because of Andrew Nembhard, and it's partially because, really, at the end of the day, this is an Eastern Conference Finals team from last year that returns absolutely everybody and only gets better. And despite what I said a couple weeks ago, and despite what we've been seeing throughout this season with a losing record Pacers team, the Pacers might be capable of a whole lot more than we would have thought just a couple weeks ago as the playoffs creep ever closer.